I'm not gonna pretend like I know anything about quarterbacks for the purposes of real life football. I thought that Tua Tagovailoa would be a lot better than Justin Herbert, and that hasn't become true. I mean, so did a lot of people. I thought that Tua was a near Joe Burrow level prospect, and that because of his hip, he was just gonna slide down and be a good value. That wasn't true. I keep using this one draft as an example, but it's just really hard to evaluate quarterbacks, and that goes for everybody. I mean, there's projects like Josh Allen and Justin Herbert that work out all the time. Oh, there's projects like Justin Herbert and Josh Allen that work out all the time. The guy that have these traits, and then there's oh man, ooh, and then there's guys like Tua and Joe Burrow, who are basically very similar prospects production wise, and they end up having different careers. I'm not counting out Tua quite yet, but I mean you get the point. They're very hard to evaluate. But for fantasy, it's just a little bit easier. There's a couple things that we want to look forward, and number one is obviously going to be the legs. I mean, if you can run in fantasy, you are going to be a solid quarterback. I mean, just look at Jalen Hurts. The guy didn't pass the ball hardly at all, and he was still a top 5 quarterback for how many weeks in a row. So if you can run, I mean, I'm preaching to the choir because this is, I mean, this is just, I mean, duh, stupid, duh. But also another thing that I want to look for is guys with just like ridiculous upside with their arm. I mean, arm talent is what we call it. And guess who has all the arm talent in the world? Sam fucking Howell. I mean, I just can't believe it. Sam Howell is so good at football. I mean, just look at that. Just an absolute dot. And he does this over and over. PFF calls him one of the most prolific deep ball throwers of the PFF era. He has all kinds of arm talent, and this isn't going to go anywhere. I mean, whether or not it's used to its full effectiveness, we don't know, but he has the tools to be a great thrower. So the only question for fantasy that we want to answer is, can he run? And, boy, let me tell you, Sam Howell, he rumbles, he stumbles, he bounces off another tackle, he can't be stopped, he's down to the 1 yard line. What a fantasy asset he's gonna be in the years to come. Sam Howell got that dog in him. He can run. Out of the 5 potential first round pick quarterbacks, Howell's 828 rushing yards last year was, here, how do I word this? It was the second best, so out of the 5 first round quarterbacks, Sam Howell's best rushing yard season was the second highest out of all of them, just behind the notorious dual threat Malik Willis. At 6'1", 225 in his near running back build, Sam Howell broke a whopping 63 tackles, okay? So we have a guy that can just throw the shit out of the ball, and is also breaking tackles. And the first critique in the PFF draft guide for Sam Howell is he's a one and run type of guy. His first instinct is to drop eyes and bolt. 13% of his dropbacks resulted in scrambles in 2022. This is so good for fantasy. If his first biggest knock is that he runs too much, that's good for fantasy. Whether or not he's equipped to run these or is the proper prerequisite athlete to be doing this, we don't care about. All we care about is the rushing yards, and Sam Howell has proven that he's going to do that. So in a world where we don't know anything about quarterbacks, you and me, we both know nothing about quarterbacks. We live in this world, and this hypothetical world, we're living in it. We're looking for just a couple things. One of them is the willingness to run, which Sam Howell has, and the other is arm talent, which Sam Howell has in, what's what I'm looking for? In bunches. That's what I'm looking for. So, given that, I feel like he's just an underrated fantasy quarterback prospect. Superflex definitely be targeting this guy. I mean, you could do far worse in 1 QB. I don't like to hold quarterbacks that long, but I mean, if you're a guy that has let's say like an Aaron Rodgers and not really a backup plan, you could do far worse than having. Actually, that's a bad example. Here, I'm gonna do a hypothetical here. What quarterback are you most willing to pair with Sam Howell if you're building a dynasty team and you just have 2 quarterbacks? Like, let's say you have like a Let's say you have like a Russell Wilson type player who you think is going to put up some big numbers coming up, but is getting older. Pair him with Sam Howell, and maybe Sam Howell turns out to be something. I mean, I just think he is an underrated prospect. And you should definitely be looking at him because I'm based on this very simple analysis. He could be that dude.